Ooh! Have we got the
Patreon?
Yes! We've got a
Patreon! Hello interwebs, it's Scott from Admiralty Entertainment, and today we're looking at the Star Wars The Black Series Wedge Antilles from Hasbro. X-Wing fighter pilot Wedge Antilles is famous for being the only person to fight in both Death Star attacks and is the only non-main cast rebel to appear in all three films of the classic trilogy. He also has a blink and you'll miss it cameo in The Rise of Skywalker. In the Star Wars family saga tradition, Wedge is played by Dennis Lawson, uncle of prequel-era Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ewan McGregor. But Dennis wasn't the only person to play Wedge. In fact, 3 different actors portrayed the role in the original film. While Lawson is the guy in the cockpit of Red 2 during the Battle of Yavin, the guy sitting next to Luke in the briefing room is also Wedge, but is played by Colin Higgins, who was unfortunately let go after a single day of filming and replaced with Lawson, who had auditioned but lost out on the role to Higgins. While it would have been easy to accept Higgins as an entirely different character since he's not named in the briefing scene, Lucasfilm decided to complicate matters by having David Ankrum record the voice of Wedge to provide an American accent, dubbing over both physical actors, leaving us with 2 different looking guys sharing the same voice to play one character. Thankfully, things became simpler moving forward as Lawson would continue to portray the role on his own in the subsequent films, even if they didn't spell his name right in the end credits until Return of the Jedi. While Nathan Kress voiced a younger Wedge in Star Wars Rebels, there was a nice touch of continuity when David Ankrum returned to provide Wedge's voice for Rogue One, when Wedge is heard over an intercom in the Yavin 4 base.
All flight personnel, please report to your commanders immediately. We have been redirected to Scarab.
Finally, after 40 years of Lucasfilm-imposed needless confusion, 2017's collection of short stories, From a Certain Point of View, finally established the briefing room Fake Wedge as a separate character, Cole Tackbright, who everyone thinks looks a lot like Wedge, so they call him Fake Wedge, which he didn't like, kinda resented. Probably sounding awfully similar didn't help him either. Wedge never received a figure in the classic Kenner Star Wars line, despite being popular in fan circles and an exceptionally easy figure to make. All they'd need to do would be to put a new head on an X-Wing Luke Skywalker figure, and given likenesses at the time, they probably could have just got away with repainting the existing head. It would be 2 decades after his debut before the first Wedge Antilles figure would be released, in the Power of the Force 2 line. 1997 saw him released as an exclusive pack-in with the Millennium Falcon carry case, and even then they got his helmet wrong and it had to be corrected in later production runs. Thankfully, it hasn't taken as long again to get subsequent and vastly improved Wedge figures. But if it took him that long, how many decades will we have to wait before we get that Cole Tackbright figure, huh? This figure comes in the familiar Black Series packaging, with the black, grey and red colour scheme that's been in place since 2015. The layout hasn't changed, logo at the top, clear window to view the figure and accessories, grayscale art, and name in red, with the window edge side of the box repeating the name in red with a larger grey version behind it, and the opposite side in stark red with the 102 designating his position in the series. 102. 101 other figures before getting to good old Wedge. And that's not counting the 2013 orange packaging releases, and the 2014 blue packaging collection, and exclusives, and deluxes, and well, let's just say things are fairly consistent when it comes to how high up the totem pole Wedge is when it comes to merch, huh? Remember, so not appearing in this film, Constable Zuvio is number 9. The back of the box again shows the logo, number, from 102, the grayscale illustration, and a bio. A talented young rebel pilot from Corellia, Wedge Antilles survived the attack on the first Death Star to become a respected veteran of Rogue Squadron. Out of the box, Wedge comes with 2 accessories, his flight helmet and a blaster. The helmet is of course a necessity and is executed pretty well. The livery looks accurate and there's some nice wear on it. It's a bit tight to get on, but once in place it really completes Wedge's iconic look. When it comes to pilots, there's always the question of what other accessories they should come with, as just a helmet tends to feel a little bit stingy, and it's not uncommon for a sidearm to be thrown in, regardless of whether it's seen on screen or not. For Wedge, we're given a Blastech DH-17 blaster pistol, more commonly associated with Rebel Fleet Troopers. It's not the first time he's been paired with this particular brand of weapon, as both the original Trilogy Collection Wedge in 2005 and the Vintage Collection release in 2012 also chose him to equip him with one. Interestingly, it seems that Snowspeeder Wedge figures all seem to favour a standard Blastech DL44 Heavy Blaster pistol, while the A New Hope and Return of the Jedi versions, and even Expanded Universe, consistently slap him with a DH-17, when he gets a gun that is, except for his Legacy Collection release with his X-Wing itself, where he got given the DL44 again. Guess they needed to conserve plastic on the sidearm after using all of it on the Starfighter and Astromech. Personally, despite how frequently it's used for him, the DH-17 feels like an odd choice to go with Wedge to me, but at least we got something. There's nothing else that really feels right as an accessory for him. They've already released R2-A3 in a Black Series multi-pack, and Minoc/Gate from the Rogue Squadron novels is now Legends, and I'm sure would also push up the price point to Deluxe Series levels. The figure itself is pretty much as you'd expect, a reuse of the X-Wing pilot Luke Skywalker figure with a new head slapped on it. Given that Mark Hamill is only about 2 centimeters taller than Dennis Lawson, and both seem to have comparable builds, it's a sensible reuse of an existing figure, even if it does make 2-Pilot Monty a lot harder for the rubes. Which one's Wedge? Some people will point out that the shared mould does mean that the belt hook used to hold Luke's lightsaber hilt is now redundant and unpainted on Wedge, but I think it really means that all X-Wing pilot flight suits have that particular hook, and it's just Luke that uses that for holding his lightsaber, while everyone else uses it for, I don't know, some other purpose. Regardless of such nerd minutiae, there's plenty of great sculpted detail here. The folds on the flight suit, the ribbing on the vest, stitching on the harness. As with the X-Wing Luke, the right hand is moulded into a trigger finger to hold the blaster accessory to maximum effect. The paintwork is acceptable, most of the figure is moulded in the appropriate colours anyway. There's a subtle wash over the flight suit to keep the orange from looking too plasticky, which is greatly appreciated. Though the forearms look to have been moulded in black, which works great for the gloves, and painted to approximate the rest of the flight suit, which leaves that section above the glove line looking a little muddy. Likewise, the white of the flak vest looks a little less convincing being painted against the backdrop of so much moulded colour, rather than being a separate overlay piece. The chest box has the most concentrated paint detail and looks okay, though feels a little sloppy. The code cylinders and mini flares are picked out nice and crisply in silver. The head, the only actual new piece of sculpting in this release, has a reasonable likeness. There's definitely a decent degree of Lawson in there, but I wouldn't say it's the greatest we've ever seen. Of course, we're so used to seeing Wedge with his helmet on that seeing him without it looks a little weird anyhow, which might be throwing off perceptions of the portrait anyway. Articulation-wise, this is a straight repeat of X-Wing Luke, since it's the exact same mould. The neck is on a ball joint, with a swivel at the lower neck. The shoulders are on hinge and swivels, as are the elbows, while both wrists have a swivel. The right hand wrist has an up and down rotation, and the left hand wrist pivots in and out. There's a diaphragm joint, while the legs follow the standard plan of ball joint hips, upper thigh swivel, double jointed knees, boot swivel, and rocket ankles. Though much of the upper leg articulation is significantly hindered by the ejection harness. Even in light of this, there's a decent amount of movement for you to get most poses you would think is natural for Wedge, especially as 90% of Wedge's screen time is him sitting in a cockpit. As an individual release, there's little to criticise here. Wedge is pretty standard for the Black Series. Sure, he'd benefit from double jointed elbows and a bicep swivel like Marvel Legends, but it's pretty much what we've come to expect after 6 years of this line. And that's really the only problem. Wedge Antilles may arguably be a cult character, but he's headlined a series of successful video games, novels, and comics, so it's ridiculous that it's taken this long to get around to bringing him into the Black Series, especially when he's been achieved in as easy a fashion as we all figured he probably would be. Don't get me wrong, I'm ecstatic to finally have Wedge to complete my cult trio of Admiral Piet, Wedge Antilles, and Boba Fett in 6-inch scale, and I'm very glad that it hasn't taken 2 decades to get to that point. I just wish they'd gotten to him a little sooner. Wedge is definitely worth picking up if you have a soft spot for the regular Joes or overlooked supporting players of the Star Wars universe, and it's about damn time we had the chance to do so. So, those are my thoughts. What are yours? we're out of here for now.
Sorry.
But be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, and we'll catch you next time on Admiralty Entertainment.